My people. I know not glad for see me, you know. When I worry if me I come on or not. So this is a regular thing. The pestilence them try interfere with everything that we are doing. But God walk with we all the time. And so it's just a temporary delay. Because we have to speak the message to the people. And so I want to welcome all of you to Reason with Rattigan. Yours truly, Will Rattigan, the rebel on www.reggaeglobalradio.com. As a reminder, my YouTube channel is up and running. And of course, please like, share, and subscribe. It sounds foreign to me to say that because I'm not that kind of person, but I was told to tell all of you like, share, and subscribe. Before I go any further, let me just say that I have with me today none other than, I have to give him his title, Attorney at Law and President of the Senate, who is formally addressed as Senator the Honorable Tom Tavares Finson. I'm also joined by, of course, the man called Wayne Lonesome, Man in the Wilderness, otherwise known as the Wind, otherwise known as the Renegade Who Not Afraid. And of course, we have our resident analyst here, Mr. Herbert Nelson. Now, before I go any further, let me just ask the Senator Tom Tavares Finson a question. Senator, we had a late start, and I know that you probably have some things planned, but look, you're gonna have to stay with us, you know. You got
I'll stay beyond the
Okay,
hour.
perfect. Well, let me just jump right into the monologue now. Um, Again, there's no cost associated with subscribing except an investment of your time. And you have to invest this time to hear what's going on in Jamaica, the analysis, the facts. And of course, we welcome criticism. So if there's something we've said that you disagree with, please let us know. Because it may be something that you misunderstand. It may be something that is incorrect. And of course, we're not above apologizing. Um, and I welcome the criticisms, by the way, because they only make me a better broadcaster, or as I say, a commentator. I've never claimed to be a journalist, never been trained as a journalist, and I don't think of myself as one. I love every minute sitting in front of this mic because I feel like I'm making a difference in the lives of the working, unemployed, and underemployed poor people of Jamaica. This is not work. Instead, it's duty, it's passion, it's joy. Today, my guests and I, and by extension, you, family, will reason about some of the latest news coming out of Jamaica. The last 6 days have been fascinating for me in that through the auspices of the man in the wilderness, the wind, the renegade who not afraid, Mr. Wayne Lonesome, I was able to participate in his interviews of the opposition spokesperson on finance matters, the Minister of Health, and the Minister of Finance. I thank the wind, the man in the wilderness, the renegade who not afraid, immensely for the opportunities that he's provided for me. As usual, family, you're invited to join us and reason with us on the phone. And again, the phone line is 667 8569. I'll repeat 667 369 8569. And family, as a reminder, please tune in to Reggae Global Radio. This station from midnight tonight until 2 a.m. And that includes you, Senator. And relax with the Rebel. This will be the sixth broadcast, and the support from the listeners has been outstanding. Again, the problem is the program, not a problem. The program is called Relax with the Rebel on this radio station, and it's tonight at midnight until 2 a.m. Make it a date and don't be late. As you are aware, one good turn deserves another. And today, I will be joined by the man in the wilderness and my former national security community colleague, Herb Nelson Jr. Uh, my first guest, making his second appearance on the program, is attorney at law and president of the Senate, who's formally, I'll repeat, formally addressed as Senator the Honorable Tom Tavares Finson.
And we went through that last time when you said Tom can work. You remember?
Yo, all right, fine, fair enough. All right, Tom. Uh, Tom enjoyed the engagement last week so much that he agreed. He has agreed to join us again. And as he did last week, no holds barred. He said he will discuss almost any topic, including his representation of certain individuals. Um, I anticipate and look forward to an interesting session with Tom. My second guest will be Teresa DePass, and she's a mental health professional with decades of experience. She will talk to us about mental health in general, and then based on your questions, she will narrow her focus to Jamaica's approach to the issue. Again, I'd like to thank Tom, Bobby Stevens, and Senator Donna Scott Motley for their significant contributions to last week's program. Much appreciated, and we hope to keep it going this week. Shout out time. Continued prayers and blessings for Mama Eileen and Papa Trevor in South Africa. Ma P in Long Island, or on Long Island, and family. Oh, by the way, Ma P, happy birthday again from the bad pick you never have. That of me, yours truly. I drove to New York, folks. I drove to New York yesterday for Ma P's birthday party. Spent a few hours with her and drove back to the DC area. I'm happy to report that she's still 21. The vibes were great. She's in good spirits, and I hope she lives to see many, many, many more birthdays. Also, big shout out to continued praise and blessings to Mrs. Nelson, Herb's wife. Earl the Pearl, get well soon, my brother. And Sassy Diva, big up yourself. Big shout out to my focus group and supporters. Big shout out to the Reggae Global family, the Meadowbrook crew, the Firehouse crew, the Rollington crew, Admiral and the General, big up on yourself, the Maxwell Avenue crew, and the crew of hard-working, dedicated, honest members of the JCF, including the chairman of the Police Federation, Mr. Rowan James. Mr. James, sir, continue to represent and take care of your members. I have a quote for you today. And the quote is this: it's a funny thing about life. If you refuse to accept anything but the best, you very often get it. So, my beloved brother, continue to refuse anything but the best deal for your members. Update: on Tuesday, the Minister of Health, the Honorable Nigel Clark, promised to look into my filings with my filing with his ministry regarding the gift submissions pertaining to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Kamina Johnson Smith. He promised to look into it, but did not say when he would report his findings. I accepted his promise, but won't be a comforted fool for too long. All right, let's begin with the reasoning with Tom, Herb, and the man in the wilderness. Kevin, if you can just transfer over, or do I do it?
I'm hearing them. We're good.
No, I want the people them say all I know. We're not there yet. Hold on a second. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. All right. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, there they are, live and in living color. Tom, Man in the Wilderness, and
Yes.
Herb. Well, look, I'm gonna play the role of moderator today. All right, because and again, I'll tell the listeners and I'll tell the panelists that Tom has agreed to answer almost any question, so it's wide open.
All right.
He's there,
Good
sir.
evening, good evening, Tom. First question. You called for abolishment of jury trial. And I think you did say because the gun court, the judge, they always try, the gun court cases single-handedly. Why you think it would be a nice idea for the justice system?
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you very much for having me back on Ratty.
Good.
I'm sorry I had to leave so early the last time. But I had a chance to listen to some of it anyway. So let us look at the issue of jury trials, specifically in Jamaica. There is I don't know how you want to refer it as a myth, the notion that a trial by your peers is an integral part of the jury system. And that was, in fact, so for many, many years in various jurisdictions. In Jamaica, people still say, oh, we can't give up the notion of a jury trial. But in truth and in fact, if you stop and think about it, all cases that are tried outside of the circuit court, that is to say, in what used to be the magistrate's court, which is now the parish court, where judges have the jurisdiction to send people to prison for up to 7 years and can fine you tens of millions of dollars. All of those cases, which are the vast majority of cases in Jamaica, are tried by a single judge. So to start with, I would imagine that maybe 70%, I don't know, I can't tell you the figure, but it's probably maybe 70% of the cases that go to trial in the resident magistrate's court, what you used to call resident magistrate's court, now parish court. And those cases are already tried by a single judge. Then you have all the matters that are tried now by, in the gun court. All of those cases are tried by a single judge once a gun is involved. So if you are charged with rape and a gun, you are tried by a single judge. If you are charged with robbery with a gun, single judge. So the amount of cases that are triable by a jury is very small in comparison to the larger amount of cases that are being tried. Now, even then, you have a situation now where most, if not all of the cases, have dual jurisdiction. That is to say, you as a citizen can choose to be tried by a jury or by a judge. So judges now are trying murder cases. Single judges are trying murder cases, although the option is there for you to be tried by a jury. And my view of it is that because of the reluctance of jurors to come out to serve, and that is a deep-seated question. People don't come because they don't want to mix up into the system, or they are afraid, or they believe if they come and serve on the jury, then they will be victimized in some way. So that to me is a situation where, oh, and I must tell you, the amount of per diem, the daily allowance that they get doesn't even cover their parking arrangement often. So there's a great reluctance. So my view is that to the extent that that is still causing a problem in holding up the trial of cases, then we ought to do away with the jury trial and deal with judge alone trials.
All right, so tell me something. What's the conviction rate in the gun courts with a single judge?
I can't give you that figure. You want me to tell you like 80% or 70% or whatever it is? I don't know.
So
why you would ask that question?
And because choose a single judge, we want to know if them getting good conviction.
Well, remember,
because we don't want.
No, remember, that you have the option of an appeal from the single judge.
Hold on, Tom, move over a little bit. A little here to your right. To your right. No, sorry, to your left. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah. You still have the capacity to appeal. So it's not as if that the judges are trying cases and sending people away to prison without proper trials. If there are questions, they are represented by an attorney. They have to be represented by an attorney in the gun court. And I must say, although I can't tell you the conviction rate, I must say that I've never heard it said that the judges in the gun court are abusing their jurisdiction. You will get cases that leave from the gun court to the Court of Appeal, and if necessary, to the Privy Council. And those cases have been heard. But I have never heard it complained of by any of my colleagues that the judges in the gun court, because they're acting as single judges and without a jury, are not sticking to the law because there are safeguards to it.
All right, Herb?
Herb.
Yes, sir.
Unmute.
Unmute, Herb.
All right, good to see you again, Tom. And
yeah, bro. Cool.
Greetings to your listeners, Mr. Rattigan, and my
Thank you,
good
sir.
friend Wayne, the man lonesome. Now, Tom, I'm 24 years retired from the U.S. military, and one of the things that is very troubling to me is this situation that's going on um, with the case against the young soldiers accused of killing Keith Clark. Now, I don't know what the law is in Jamaica with regards to court martials versus um, uh, civil trials or criminal court trials. But this case calls out, begs for a court martial trial, even if the court martial had to be convened amongst CARICOM countries, military officers from CARICOM countries. The reason I'm saying that is because they understand military law, they understand leadership, and they understand the failures of leadership. The question that I think the DPP may be devoid of a personal knowledge or intimate knowledge of how military law is exacted is that she's trying a corporal, a lance corporal, and a private for the killing of a civilian. Now, something like this under the 2010 um, activities in Tivoli Gardens, this man was being monitored by the military intelligence as well as police intelligence. So if you're going to send a
You
hundred,
you have to be careful when you say things like that because you're dealing with a citizen. I have heard or seen no evidence that that citizen was identified as a wrongdoer, none whatsoever. And in fact, for you to say that he was being monitored by the military intelligence is the first time I've ever heard that. Number one, and number two, the matter is still before the court. And notwithstanding that we are operating in a virtual space, I think that we still have to be careful.
right?
You know, I've never heard it said that Keith Clark was being monitored by any agency. To the best of my knowledge, he is someone who was an accountant, and he's someone whose family have supported him. He's come. I don't want to say it, but his antecedents are impeccable.
Okay. Well, I'm not, you know, outlaying facts that would lead to impugning his integrity.
Yes, man. Because if you say that he's being monitored by the police and the military intelligence at a time in Jamaica when there was a state of emergency, of course, you impugn integrity.
Okay, all right.
But maybe what I don't remember last week, where you got into a situation where I kept interrupting you, and I don't want to do it.
Right. Let me just lay out.
Look here, hold on. The soldiers are operating within a civil jurisdiction, a civilian jurisdiction, and they are tried if they commit an offense outside of camp, interacting with Jamaican citizens. They are tried as it relates to the civil jurisdictional law, the civil or criminal law that exists within the civilian jurisdiction. No, what you are suggesting is that I don't even know of no, well, maybe there are
were they under civilian control?
Civilized countries that a soldier go out into the civilian community and commit what is alleged to be an offense, and you take him into camp and try him in a jurisdiction, in a military jurisdiction. Our constitution don't work like that.
Well, this is what I was trying to get from you.
Final thing. We talk about the director of public prosecutions not understanding military law. He's not being tried under military law. What they are being tried for is offenses relating to the killing of Mr. Keith Clark in circumstances that the state is saying require a charge to be brought before the criminal courts in the civil jurisdiction. It's not a military, that they didn't commit any military offense.
Okay. All right, Tom. Under whose control were these soldiers allowed to deploy, over 100 of them, to the area to attack viciously the residents? You can see all the bullet holes. I wish we could pull up that picture. I think, Lonesome may have the picture. And then enter the home under orders and execute this man.
But look at what you see what I'm telling you. You have said that these people viciously attack the home, enter the home and execute Mr. Keith Clark. That has not been decided in the court.
Under whose orders? This is what I'm saying. Who controlled them at the time?
No, but you've gone past the orders. You have already convicted the men because they went in. Listen,
I've said what occurred.
They said that they're going to the home and execute the men. Is there any evidence of that has been accepted by a court? No. That's why they are before the court to determine if the killing of Mr. Clark was lawfully justified or not. But you have already come to the conclusion that he was executed, which suggests that it's an illegal execution. And now you're asking me who is responsible for that.
No, Tom, let me ask you, let me just jump in here. I think the question, the most probative question is, under whose direction did they leave camp and go to this location? Forget about what the attack, but who ordered them to go there?
So why are you of the view? First of all, the persons are charged with a specific act, right? I could say, if I was trying to be provocative, I could say that whoever it is that sent them there or is ultimately responsible, because the truth of the matter is that the person who is ultimately responsible would be the Minister of National Security, the minister in charge of the military, and the Chief of Staff. But what relevance is that to what took place on the scene and whether or not persons who participated in a particular event are guilty of a criminal offense? Now, bear in mind, from Nuremberg, it has been well established that following orders is not a defense.
Mm-hmm.
That's been established in international law a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's the Chief of Staff send them up there, or is Mr. Bunting, who I think, it would have been Nelson, who was the Minister of National Security, or Mr. Golding, who was the Minister of Defense, whether who send them there is neither here nor there.
It's important, Tom, to understand this is the military, right? The military, and I understand Nuremberg very, very well, and Geneva Conventions and the law against the abuse of citizens and the military entering into civilian households. I understand those things quite well. But where this leap has been made is an investigation, I assume, either was done or was not done, to determine who sent them there in such great numbers and who gave the order to open fire on the residents.
You see what you have done again? You have gone down the road, you're going along very nicely. You want to know who gave orders to get them there.
Right.
And we said we can accept that. For them to leave out of camp or wherever they are coming to go to this residence, they must have been given some order to do so. But then now you make a leap and say, who give them authority or orders to fire on the man yard? That's an assumption that I can't make, that anybody gave any such order.
And the only reason I'm saying this, Tom, is because, again, as a military person, every time you do something in the field, while field operations are in progress, you have to receive an order. So if there was an investigation, maybe we should key on the investigation that either was or wasn't done. Are you, as the leader in the Senate, the head man in charge, are you aware of any investigation that was done with regards to over 100 soldiers being ordered to the area and any orders being given subsequent to that deployment?
First of all, my role in the Senate would have me, I would not have that within the purview of my jurisdiction as president of the Senate. I am aware that investigations were done by military. It was it Indicom at the time, certainly the police force, and files prepared. Those files were submitted to the Director of Public Prosecutions and rulings made. The ruling which was made indicated that certain persons ought to be charged for the offense of murder. I have not read that file. And to be quite frank with you, aside from reading reports or summaries of that file, I've had no occasion to read that file from cover to cover. Let me get back to the point. What are the soldiers? What are the individuals charged with? They are charged with the offense of murder, and there are specific aspects, there are specific ingredients of that offense which must be proved for a conviction. There are certain things that you have to establish, and there are certain defenses. No doubt, prosecution is saying that they opened fire without just cause. No doubt, persons charged will say that they were acting lawfully and maybe, I don't know, maybe in self-defense. And those are the issues that will be tried in the court, I believe. So if you bring it right down to that grandeur level, you are charged with murder. These are the offenses. These are the ingredients of the offense. Your defense, I was acting in self-defense. Then you raise issues of carelessness, where you acting within the bounds of reason. Did you respond to the perceived threat appropriately? All of those relate to the offense of murder and the defenses that are available to individuals. Now, who it is that send them up there, I don't know the extent to which that would be relevant either to the prosecution or the defense.
All right.
Because, hold on 1 minute,
Okay.
there is a presumption, there is a presumption that if they are there, that they are there acting on lawful order. For them to get there, 100 soldiers, if they say it's 100, soldiers just don't leave out from camp and go to people's place without lawful authority.
All right. Let me turn your attention to, well, I should say back to something that the man in the wilderness asked you. He was asking about bench trials and jury trials and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
No, let me just throw this out. There was a recent study done, and it said that recently, I think it was 2020, and studies stated that upwards of 70% of Jamaicans, at least the ones polled, believe that they live in a corrupt society. That's the population at large responding to the questions. And then when we talk about bench trials, it's and I'm not casting aspersions on the judiciary, but here's a question. Here's a statement, and then I'll ask you the question. They say that if you want a good lawyer, talk to somebody who knows the law. But if you want an outstanding lawyer, talk to somebody who knows a judge. And that it resonates with me, but I'll leave that for you to ponder. Here's a question I want to ask you.
No,
I
can't respond to it right away. I don't have to ponder on it.
All right, go ahead. Respond to it, please.
First of all, we have the capacity, and I mentioned it to you last week,
Mention it again.
We have the capacity to decry, to denigrate ourselves and our institutions. Jamaica became independent in the early 60s and took over a judicial system that was run by Englishmen, English prosecutors, and to a large extent, Anglophone Jamaican lawyers or English lawyers. We were left a system. Let me give you an example. We were left a system that sent our judges and our senior legal officers home at age 60. And the reason why that was done is because they wanted to go back to England and enjoy their retirement. The judicial system, by any possible analysis, has been transformed by independent Jamaica to a level of international competence. But we in Jamaica, rather than looking at the level of competence of our Court of Appeal, our High Court judges, Parish Court judges, we prefer to say, sure, all of them are corrupt. I can tell you, in the history of this country, to the best of my recollection, there has been one incident where a resident magistrate was found to have acted corruptly, and she was arrested and sent to jail. This little quip that you mentioned, oh, there are two types of lawyers, one who know the law and one who know the judge. That is something that people say all over the world, and it is a bit of hilarity.
So it does not in Jamaica.
I can only say that I've never experienced any such thing.
And you've never heard of it happening in Jamaica.
But no, to hurt. If I am telling you that if there is somebody that can come forward and credibly say that they have given judge money or that they have used their influence to judges to influence the outcome of any criminal case or civil case, it would be a fantastic thing to me. Right. Let me tell you, I have heard. I have heard. Okay. Listen to what I tell you, I hear.
Okay.
I have heard where people say, oh, them say a man and the man say them know the judge and them give money to give the judge. That is, I can't hear that. That is rubbish. I never hear that yet. But look here now, we have the capacity to discredit ourselves. And we do it because see your show here, you have other people who have similar show, wide audience. And the first thing, oh, judge them in Jamaica corrupt. I have never seen it. And none of you can't give me any evidence of it.
All right, well, let me ask you this then. So should I take it then, by everything you've said so far, that you believe in the ability and the competence of judges in the Caribbean? You know where I'm going with this.
Yes, but
no, I'm just asking you a simple question.
So let me ask you a question.
No. Answer my question first.
To ask you a question.
No. My question is pending.
I'm going to answer to that question.
No. Answer it with an answer, not with a question.
You think that when I said what I said, I didn't know where I was going?
No, you know where I'm going. No, you know where I'm going. So that's why I'm asking you now. The question pending is, do you believe in the competence and the ability? You mentioned about Jamaica, but now I'm talking about the Caribbean. Do you believe?
Okay.
Yeah.
Look here.
It's a simple yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, all right. No, that you answer. Let me ask you this. Then why is it that we don't subscribe to the CCJ?
Okay. In my opinion, the judges in the Caribbean are excellent. They provide excellent jurisprudence for us to follow. Our final Court of Appeal in Jamaica is an excellent body. The Privy Council, which provides law, which allows even Jamaican lawyers to sit over there, by the way. The Privy Council has done excellent for Jamaica. And even recently, there has been a ruling which provided great clarity to us in relation to questions of our own Bill of Rights. The question you want my personal view, I do not see a difficulty with us establishing our own final Court of Appeal in Jamaica. I don't have a problem with that.
So wait, hold on.
As far as the Caribbean Court of Justice is concerned, I do not believe it is, and this is my view, that we should necessarily, according to them, according to people, bring home our legal patrimony and send it to Port of Spain. I think that we have the capacity to do it ourselves. In the meantime, recognize that in order to remove the Privy Council we have to put the matter to a referendum.
Okay, I understand that.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't have no issue with the Jamaican judges. But I want to tell you, you look at something. There was a ruling recently of our Court of Appeal, and the Privy Council, it related to the issue of, I think it needs, and a judgment was given by our Chief Justice. And the Privy Council, essentially, although they may have tweaked a bit his judgment, accepted his ruling. So our competence is beyond question.
Yeah, but here's the thing: you just made the point that even though the Privy Council is composed of excellent jurists, right? It's a legacy body, right? We didn't create that. That was imposed on us. And so it sounded to me as if you were saying we need to get away from having the English people come and render justice.
But I just said that I think Jamaica can establish it all.
No, but what about but look, we don't have that pending right now. What we have is CCJ. And in fact, Jamaica supported the CCJ financially and otherwise.
Is Trinidad the headquarters is in Trinidad.
Yes,
Trinidad
but so why is it then that we're supporting them then if we don't believe in them? Or we don't want to subscribe to them?
We deal with them in a particular civil jurisdiction. We don't deal with them.
No, the wilderness man is waiting to ask his question. But let me just ask you this one question. Recently, the same Privy Council that we're talking about rendered a decision saying that attorneys will now have to report, in essence, report suspicious clients, right? We know the reason why. What is your opinion on that decision?
First of all, I recognize that Bar Association and the attorney associations, the associations of attorneys that took this matter to the Privy Council were wasting their time. If you have a regime that says, you have a regime that recognizes that you have a problem in the society of illegal money getting into the system and corrupting the system, and accountants are subject to it, banks are subject to it, then the attorneys are also to be subject to it. I have no difficulty with the ruling from the Privy Council.
All right, hold on. Let me just make an announcement to the people listening to us on the commercial side, the radio side. We're going to take a commercial break shortly. It's scheduled, but we on the live stream side will not take that commercial break. We're going to continue with Tom. So if you want to hear or even participate in the conversation that's going on, then you can switch over from the radio side to the live stream side. And if you feel like switching back after the commercial break, it's your election, or you can stay with us. Continue. Mr. Man in the Wilderness, your turn,
yes,
sir.
Man. Yes, man. We can continue with that, though, right? Tom, as the president who preside over the Senate, right? Passing laws for harsher punishment for these criminals, to get locked up and, long sentences. You also represent a lot of these so-called criminals. What's your position on this as a president? If it, what would they call it now, Rattigan? If it
is there a contract?
Proper, if it's proper, appropriate for you to represent in these criminals, although you're the one who helped passing the laws to put them away.
You're talking about conflict of interest, which I think your Tom was about to assert.
As a member of the Jamaican Senate, I'm a part of the review chamber. Jamaica has a dual two-tier system. So I'm a part of the system that deals with reviewing the laws, some of which are laws that affect criminal side of the jurisdiction. You just mentioned about the question of increasing penalties. The truth about the matter is that my profession as a criminal trial advocate is completely divorced from that. In one capacity, I'm reviewing a law to determine whether or not that law fits within the Constitution of Jamaica, whether there is anything unconstitutional in the law, whether the law can be applied within the framework of the Constitution. And as the president of the Senate, at the end of the day, I signed the law to say, essentially, the Senate has agreed that this law fits within the jurisdiction of, within the confines of the Constitution, and further within the policy framework of the government. In another capacity, I would take that same law and determine in a court of law whether that law which is being applied against my client is being applied fairly. So in my mind, at least, I'm in a position where I operate in two different areas of the law.
Two different areas. All right. But as Ratty does pointed out, right? With some of these high profile, what would I call gunman or so-called gunman, or them get this money to pay lawyers fee and all these kind of things. That don't bother you or trouble you? Like, you know, the kind of fee you but them pay you with, you know?
I like that. Well, you're making several assumptions there. What the Privy Council is really saying now is that the laws of poker and so on apply to all attorneys. I must tell you that with the greatest of respect, that I've never been so overwhelmed with fees that I wonder where the hell these people get this money from. But that's another time.
But
You laugh.
Tom, you like everybody else, you have to eat.
Well, that's
And
what
like every other attorney out there, whether they're young, they're looking up to you, right? And they're looking at your representations, right? So it's important when you say, let me give you a case in point. The Manat case where Dulles tried to use $50,000 to pay Manat, and all of a sudden the State Department is sticking it to Mr. Vaz over the fact that they considered that coming from a drug dealer as ill-gotten gain, and that money should never have entered into the process. Now let's say you're representing, let me find somebody else that do this, Dog Paw, right? And Dog Paw is giving you $50,000 US to take care of him.
Well, first, look here, since Dog Paw is associated with my daughter, I would not take any money from him because I couldn't represent him.
Okay, I got you.
You know, so
give me some of the prominent names that you represent.
That is a low ball, but I'm played still.
No, him say me take questions about world boss. Him say me take questions about the world boss.
As far as Dudus and Manat and all of that, I'm going to ask you a simple question. In all of those discussions, I used to represent Christopher Coke. In all of those discussions with Manat, extradition, Beverly Garden, and big commission of inquiry, you hear my name calling it?
We have not heard your name called in that instance.
In any of those mix-up with Manat Phillips invasion of West Kingston, Washington State Department, they keep an inquiry down at the conference center for how much week or month. You hear my name calling it?
Tom.
What? What is that?
You must share some documents. No, well.
You have document with my name in it? A joke you are making.
Mum's the word.
Well, we know Hold on, Tom. Ratty, we know say you don't call Almila name in something like this where you say, okay, it might have got this or something like that. You know, to tell you the truth, we never really hear Tom name calling. Well, you might have something. Well,
it may have been written. May not have been called. May have been written.
No, but I am telling you my name. Don't call anything. Check me a piece of paper and say, you know what? I was so surprised to see the other day. I hear somebody told me that they went to Up Park Camp to our guard room up there and saw where I had written a letter to the Jamaica Defense Force, indicating to them on behalf of my client his gratitude for the manner in which he was treated by the soldiers in Upper Camp. My name is on the wall in Upper Camp. I don't know what you are showing me.
No, because what I'm saying to you is that it wasn't. No, Tom. What I'm saying, no, Tom, here's a distinction. No, here's a distinction. Here's a distinction. No, here's a distinction. No, here's a Tom.
The truth comes out, Tom.
No, what on her? Tom, here's a distinction. You said that you asked a question if you have you ever heard? I did this, right? This is not heard, this is written. So
make me see it then. You can't call it out now.
You No, I want.
What document?
Is what?
Is what document it is?
You soon know. But listen, here's a question I want to ask you, Tom.
What is my name? You mix up and me I tell you if you go and mix it up.
No, I don't want to mix up your name. I want it clean. I don't want to mix it up. I don't mix it up. But listen, Herb, you have a question? Because
Yeah. Well, my concern is this: if Tom is on the board of honor of JDF, he should have stated that fact, because it influences his answers to me as to why the JDF report was not called out. And the reason why I said senior members, senior to the commander, Rocky
What
Mead.
I'm telling you is that when my client was taken to the Jamaica Defense Force and kept there, awaiting extradition to the United States, and when he was leaving out of Jamaica, I said to himself, Uncle, I must tell you, the soldiers have treated me very well. I have no problem. I thought I might have been abused. They treat me very well. Would you please convey my gratitude, if you want to use that word, to the Chief of Staff? And I wrote and said, Dear sir, my client has no problem with the manner in which he was treated by the Jamaica Defense Force. I don't know how you jump from that and gone back to Mr. Clark.
No, I'm not going back. All right, let me put the shoe on the other foot. I am now asking you to represent the Corporal Buckley, who's accused of these murders. And would it be within your purview as the representing attorney to challenge the fact that the JDF has separated the chain of command, which is command and control over these three young men, in whatever report they wrote, and has left these young men out there on a boat in the middle of the ocean to sink or swim? Would it be within your purview to challenge that report and to say these young men were acting on orders? They do not move left, right, or center or backwards without specific orders, written or verbal. Would you be able to challenge that?
First of all, I already indicated to you that I don't have the papers, so I don't know the detail. And we're going back to the question. I thought
you brought up the fact, Tom, that there was a military report. You said that. You admitted that.
I brought up the fact that what?
There was a written military report, as well as civilian report.
Yes, what I said.
I
do know that the military had an investigation, Indocom had an investigation, and the police had an investigation, and all of those matters were submitted to the Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, bear in mind, I have not seen it, but by virtue of my knowledge of procedure, I have not heard it said in the newspaper or in the press or anywhere else that the military did not investigate this. They would have in the normal scheme of things. So I assume that was done. I haven't seen it, and I can't say. What you're asking me, you see, coming back to this question. First, the young soldiers, or the soldiers, I should say, have been charged in a civilian court. And you come back to the question of orders. I can't really answer that. I don't know. That is outside of my pay grade, which is not very high.
And you wonder about the high fees or the fees that you've been collecting, right? Okay.
we will guarantee your fees to represent them.
I want to say something. Do you know that I don't think that I would. KD Knight is someone who I have a very good relationship with, and we have One of the first very important cases that I did with KD9, Bert Samuels, who you should have on your show, by the way, was a very junior lawyer at the time. And it was a murder matter in Court 1 in the Home Circuit Court. And there were 3 accused persons. This is just an aside, you know. There were 3 accused persons, and Knight was a senior lawyer to me. So I was representing a female who it was accused that she had paid her boyfriend to shoot her husband and kill him. And I was representing the wife. Knight was representing the shooter, and there was somebody else down the line. I don't remember his role. And I'm preparing the case, and I'm saying to myself, I'm a young lawyer, and I'm saying to myself, boy, KD9 can take care of this, man. I don't have to do this, I don't have to do that. I just have to make some reasonable preparation, right? But as far as the intricacies of this thing, I'm going to leave that to senior counsel KD9, who at the time I didn't know very well anyway. So I went to court this morning, and the court case is about to start. And Knight came in and took off his wraparound glasses and threw it down on the desk and said, "Young Tom, what is this case about?"
I don't know. Couldn't give an answer.
And what is the defense? And anyway, I almost died, but there you have it. So we have had a long relationship. And one of the things that we have discussed over the years is the extent to which you have a situation where you're in the Senate, where you are passing laws, you're looking at the question as to whether or not a law is within the jurisdiction or within the confines of the Constitution. And yet still, you're working in the criminal courts, or you're doing something else. You're head of Grace Kennedy, or you have a psychiatric practice and so on. And we often discuss how difficult it is for people to separate your function as a legislator and your function in whatever capacity it is that you are making a living. And at the time when this whole thing with Dudos came up, I was in the Senate. I was the president. I was in the Senate. And PNP senator made a remark, sort of about a remark. And Knight stood up and indicated and explained to his own members that there is a distinction between how a person operates here and how a person operates in the criminal courts. And I'm always grateful to him. I don't know why I got off on KB9, but he's my friend anyway.
All right, let me ask.
I call that a filibuster. You haven't answered the question yet.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, let me just, I'm looking at the chat room now, and the overwhelming response is that you're very loquacious, but you're not answering the question specifically. Now, that's what the people out there listening to you are saying.
Which is the question I'm not answering specifically about the soldiers?
Yeah,
so. I made you their defense lawyer.
No, but I'm not the defense lawyer.
No. Let's just supposing, Tom.
No, I can't suppose. A man can't come into my office and say, "I want to suppose that you're my lawyer."
Mama Pierre.
We have the money to pay you, so don't worry about that.
Tom, let me ask you. Let me switch gears a little bit here and talk about the Integrity Commission now. I want to dig deep with you on the Integrity Commission Act of 2017 and also the Constitution. But let me preface all of that by asking you the simple question. What's your opinion on the so-called gag on the Integrity Commission?
First of all, people keep continuously referring to this thing as a gag. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Christie himself has campaigned to remove what he refers to as a gag. All right. What exactly are we speaking about? What he's speaking about is a provision that says that the investigation of an individual ought not to be publicized until the termination of that investigation. Now, it seems to me that operates across the board. If you, Mr. Rattigan, if the fraud squad were to announce tomorrow, oh, we are investigating Mr. Rattigan and several counts of fraud, I would consider that a breach of your privacy and a breach of your rights as a citizen. Why is it that you, especially now, since you have the experience of this thing in the parliament with the Prime Minister, with the Integrity Commission, why is it that the Integrity Commission wants to announce to the world that they are investigating John Brown, a member of parliament, because it is suspected that he has done something? Do the investigation and charge him if the investigation comes to fruition. What they want to do? They want to say, okay, these 12 members of parliament are being investigated for corruption. Here are the 12 names. That's what they want to be able to do.
And what's wrong with that?
What do you mean, what is wrong with that?
It's only an investigation. It's not a,
Yes,
it's not a conviction. It's not a conviction.
Well, yes, so what we are saying, why should you be allowed to tarnish the reputation of any citizen of Jamaica until the investigation is completed? And
But we see it with the police. The police, they make statements say that they're investigating somebody. What's wrong with that?
Right?
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
Right?
But I notice you're not taking but I know
right?
but I notice you're not taking objection to that when the police
But
said
I already said to you that the police do not do that.
the police do not do what?
The police walk around saying they're investigating this one, investigating that one without
No, I've seen and I've heard occasionally where they said somebody's under investigation. But
Well, the police put out this as someone wanted. Do it with Swagger Benz and them there overseas.
Right.
And then they come and apologize. With me said that they wrong. Totally wrong, because the man live overseas. Yes, they wanted for some shooting and then look what happened. The police them continue to do these things. So it needs to stop then.
So what you are saying that it is wrong. But then you're in another position, and here is a gentleman who knows the law as it relates to the criminal application of the law. If you take this thing to the extreme, right, then you have a situation where a man says, I saw John Brown shoot Mary Stokes, and the police can put out a poster and say he's to come in. Nothing wrong with that, you know. But you're in a different situation where you are investigating a member of parliament, whether PNP or JLP, to say that this person in 2014 took or gave a contract in illegal circumstances. You don't understand that all the parliament is saying, all the law is saying, investigate the matter.
Yeah, but
hold on a little bit. Why is it necessary to go on the front page to say, we are investigating member of parliament John Brown? Why is that necessary? You know, do your work, man.
But hold on, let's be clear though.
Let me ask you a question. How does the so-called gag order prevent the Integrity Commission from doing their job? Answer that.
All right, I'll answer you. For example, if they make the announcement that, listen, we're investigating Mr. Tom Tavares Finson for whatever the violation is, it's quite possible that there might be witnesses out there who might come forward once they know that the investigation has begun. That otherwise, if they don't know about it, they probably wouldn't have said a word. How about that?
I have never heard the Integrity Commission.
I ask you, how about that argument?
I have never heard.
I don't know. I forget about integrity. I ask you, you ask me a question and I answer you. How about that argument?
Yeah, but if you
see a stammer now. Listen, let me ask.
If you have sufficient information to investigate somebody, investigate them. Come before the parliament, come before the country and say, we have investigated this person and here is the result. You're accusing me of stammering. I don't appreciate that. No, man.
It's light-hearted. Come on, you're too thin-skinned. You're too thin-skinned. You're too thin-skinned. No, you're too thin-skinned, man. You're too thin-skinned. But Art.
You want to hold on a little bit. You want to get into the Integrity Commission, and I'm going to say something now.
Okay. Okay.
What I'm going to say.
You want to go first? You want to go first? Oh.
The same Integrity Commission that you want to give authority to set and publish anything. They have a report from 2007, 2008, an investigation to Andrew Holness in relation to the question of conflict of interest. And we discussed it last week. They submitted to their department, the legal department, and the legal department said there is nothing to prosecute here. And that same organization that you are calling for to, quote, remove the gag order, gag clause, put the investigation before the court and have the end result of the investigation put down up at the office and don't put it before the court. But that is, I want to just clear up. I want to just say,
all right.
As you keep, let me tell you what you keep saying, and I appreciate it. You say something to the effect, let me change the narrative. Let me change the narrative. You operate an important source of information to Jamaicans and non-Jamaicans. Some Caribbean, American people, you have a listenership. You have a listenership that is appreciative of you, because before you asked me to come on your show, I'd heard about your show.
Oh, wow.
I know the area in which you operate, and I know that people listen to the show. But you don't want to be in a position where all your show do, I'm not saying you do, all your show do is tear down Jamaica. There are so many things happening in Jamaica now beyond. I'm not talking about Labour Party politics or Mr. Golden or Andrew Wallace. I'm speaking about things that are happening in this country that are so important. And you are not talking about it. Let me give you an example. The governor of the Bank of Jamaica, Biles, recently said that in the last quarter of 2022, the Jamaican economy grew by 5.7%. Unprecedented growth for Jamaica. Unprecedented in economies which have been ravaged by COVID.
Hello?
You need to talk about that. Biles, Governor Biles cannot be considered
Mr. Rattigan.
a stooge of the government of Jamaica.
Hold on one second, Tom. We have a call. Hold on a second. Yeah, caller, go ahead.
You're the panel live?
Yes, I am on live, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, let's check it out.
All right, cool. All right, Tom, let me
just
Sure.
run through quick then again to finish. You have unemployment at 6%. I'm not suggesting that there are not problems, 6% unemployment rate in Jamaica is unprecedented in independent Jamaica. You have a tourist industry that is booming. In the last months, January and February, and I'm not suggesting that we can rest on our laurels, serious crime in this country is down by 25%.
Without state of emergency.
No, that's not true. State of emergency are run same way.
No,
Oh, yeah?
I think
State of emergencies are running same
serious crime.
In other words, they are being declared and not. We're not seeking the opposition. Input to extend.
I'll discuss that. Finish your point. Finish your point.
In other words, what I'm saying is this. You have a program like this that has reached so many people. The Financial Times wrote an article to say that the recovery of Jamaica post-COVID is unprecedented.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not in this region. You can't even go to a supermarket. Hold on. You cannot go to a supermarket in England.
So I ask something to that.
Go ahead.
Let me just ask something. So Jamaica grew.
But Tom, you kill the time, man. We understand the point you made.
You have a program like this, and you're talking about doodles, and you throw a word for me and put in dog pie in it. And
but about what you're talking about now,
All right, Tom, hold on a second. Tom, hold on a second now.
All right. So,
Yeah, hold on a second.
Hold
on a second.
So, we see the paper come out a couple months ago, and the show said 2 million people can't find food to eat. And it printed. 2 million people in Jamaica now, 2 million Jamaicans can't find proper food, can't feed themselves.
Where you see that?
Yeah. We show that. We show it today. How we show it? The finance minister the other day? Yes. We show it to the
Nigel
finance.
Clark said 2 million people.
No, the paper, it come out and it show it published in the Gleaner or something. You can look at it. So we show it to one of them.
All right,
Yeah?
hold on it. Tom, hold on a second. Tom.
Everyone on our friend and
No,
family
hold on,
in
Tom.
Jamaica.
Of course, of
Never
course.
call on a Jamaica and you say 2 million people in Jamaica can't
Hold on a
buy
second.
food.
No,
Tom.
them can't eat proper food. No, me and you
You might talk nutritious food you might talk about, Tom.
Because the rice, the staple rice and the flour are chicken, but that can be proper food. Some can't even find food feed for real. We know that because
all right,
we
Tom. No, Tom.
No, but that's
But
the
Tom-
reality.
but Tom,
so
Tom.
even the 6%.
Tom, you have to hold on. Tom, you have to hold on. You have to hold on, Tom. Hold on a second. Hold on.
No, man, I don't tear down. No.
Hold on there. Hold on there. Hold on
No,
there.
deal with reality. It's not about no.
Tom, remember you make a promise you're not going to interrupt, you know. I will make you talk. We'll make you talk.
Hold on. No. Deal
No,
with
man.
reality.
Last week and say how Kudus used to do at Jamaica and get every contract, and since him leave at Juliet Holness, I get the contract.
Who said that?
I hear that.
Where you hear that?
Tell me, say it up. Somebody never said so.
No, where you hear that?
It wasn't said.
I'm asking you where you hear that. I don't remember hearing it. That's what I'm
Somebody
asking
tell me, say
you.
they
All right,
hear
hold
it.
on a second. Wait, finish your point. Because we have something
Yes,
on
but
top.
you know, you know, say over Jamaica, a lot of things not right. And we not hide this. It's about Bank of Jamaica.
Tom, you cannot interrupt, Tom. Make him finish, Tom. Tom, you have to make him finish. You have to make him finish. Tom.
Number one, you know what?
Tom. All right, hold on.
We not do that. We not do no fast big up. We don't do that. We not gonna be no puppet. We don't do fast big up. And we cannot. We don't do fast big up. We not follow the Bank of Jamaica biles because that's a foolishness. We only do fast big up. No, we don't do fast big up.
Put a new Kingston background. You put
No
yourself-
way.
Look on the background.
All right, let me talk about that. Hold on there, Wayne. Hold on there. Him touch my can. Hold on, him touch my can. Tom. All right, Tom. Let me talk to you.
Nah, man.
Hold on, Tom, hold on a second. No, Tom, you have to restrain yourself, man. You have to make other people talk too. You have to make other people talk. No, hold on a second.
You heard the program last night with the Minister of Health.
Them never listen to that. No, never listen to it. No, make him start up. No, make him. Let me hold him right with him there. Tom, hold on there. People that come from Jamaica. Call me call you back. I'm not talk to Tom, you know. I'm going to work him now. Listen, Tom, let me tell you something. This program, yeah, we talk about some of the good things going on in Jamaica. Obviously, you know watch the whole thing. That's what I'm saying. You're not listening.
No.
Yeah, but Tom, hold on a second now. Tom, you can't operate like this, Tom. Tom, we can't operate like this.
We're not doing a bogus big up.
Hold on now. Tom.
The Bank of Jamaica said
Tom.
the country-
The Bank of Jamaica.
Hold on a second.
People hungry.
Hold on now, Tom.
Why the dollar devalue so much? Why the dollar devalue so much?
Hold on a second,
Me, I
Tom.
tell you, say people
Hold on there.
go because we have to do
Tom.
what we can't do that.
Hold on, I'm not talking to Tom.
Yeah,
Tom.
all right.
Hold on there.
Okay, hold on, Ratty.
Go ahead.
So them put off local government election. Why? Because them can't find the money and they can't something and something and that. We have to come to the reality and come to the realness, brother. We can't say we are put on a country, but we have to talk real. I know we violence are said, but we have to talk real thing. Real thing here.
You throw a word and move on.
Tom.
Not me. We're not throwing a word. We just keep it real.
Tom, hold on a second now. Tom, let me say my piece now, Tom, because you spoke a lot and you interrupt and you say never go interrupt, you know. Well, no run. Stay right where there. All right. First, we could talk about the background. Tom, you know the background, Tom? You know this background is to me? This background is inspiration. This looks exactly like my street, Penwood Road, down a Waterhouse. And every time he come, let me finish, no man. Let me finish. Let me finish, no man. And what happened is that every time I come on this program, I sit behind the set and I see that background. It reminds me of where I came from. And it reminds me who I left behind. And
But
so,
listen,
Tom, we can't. Tom, listen to me now. Listen to me. No, I'm constituency. Constituency at a while. Listen, let me tell you something, Tom. So when I come on and I see this, it inspires me because it said to me, don't ever forget where you come from. Don't forget them people there. And that's one of the reasons why we do this. And we talk out for poor people. No, the other thing that you mentioned is that we not big up Jamaica on this program, not big up Jamaica. We big up Jamaica.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
No.
When you don't listen long enough, you don't listen the program, Tom. Make it
But
up.
we keep it real.
Tom,
We keep it real.
Tom, what you need to do
About
is,
Jamaica.
Tom,
We
make
have
a pledge.
family, Tom. We
Yeah.
not leave out nothing
Tom,
at
make
all.
a pledge to me.
Big man, you couldn't have
Well,
family in Jamaica and you come on this here and tell American people say 2
No,
million
but we couldn't tell lie. If you
Well,
tell
on,
lie,
Tom.
no, you can't be bogus. You
2
have to
million
talk
people
straight,
in
brother.
Jamaica dead
I want thing with me, no. We not take no program from no politician. We have to talk straight as is and talk factual. We can't come up like Bank of Jamaica guy and tell him lie about we grow 5%. Where is the growth? We not have no road, them never repaired properly. The
Where are you
infrastructure
getting
them
all
mashed
of
down.
that? Where
The
you getting
hospital them run down. The school them not work right. But we talk the truth, brother. We have to talk the truth, man. We not, I no disrespect. Uncle, we can build the country have to talk the truth. We not play politics on here, you know. This is not politics, brother.
You call your relative in Jamaica and ask them about the condition of the roads.
Brother, me see it every day. Me
Where?
see it every day. Me talk to them every day. Me have to build
All right,
place,
well-
enough thing. We have to invest in the place, you know, brother.
Tom, let me just say something about
Yeah, man.
let me say about the unemployment. You say that it is the lowest, and it is true. But Tom, one of the things that we're not talking about is underemployment, right? We talk when you start talking about the people who earn a living wage, Tom, right? 9,000.
Rattigan,
Nine-
name in a man.
Well,
Rattigan,
no,
this
no,
guy
but
going-
Tom, listen.
And one of
We-
the
well,
things
I
that
know-
I'm
Tom.
concerned about, too, although you have a lot of people who are working, for example, in hotels, the wages are not commensurate with the work that they are doing. I
Okay.
recognize that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Recognize
let
that.
me say
At the
something.
same time, you are coming out of a pandemic. You are in a situation where the economy could be much better, but it could be dramatically worse. We could have 2 million people down here starved. We could have.
But we in the
everywhere
diaspora send 3 billion come. So we are balance it. How we are balance it, you know? So you should not tell me thank you for what we are doing. We not just attack where we have put our money where we out there. So we still have balance it. We not just criticize, you know, but we are balanced it.
Oh,
in.
Lisa, yeah, go ahead. Tell me the
We are
question.
balanced
So I
it,
can
brother.
ask them. Because I don't
We
think
are
they can hear
balanced,
you.
man.
No, I want
We
to
are, you
say
know, so we are
something.
balanced.
Hold on. I have a caller. Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, Tom. Listen, I can move
Lisa,
to
talk up
Jamaica,
because we
right?
cannot hear you.
Lisa, talk up louder.
Yeah, okay. I'm from Jamaica and I've lived in the States for 40 years, right? And I have a few family there and I do visit. Love my country. It's a beautiful country, okay? And I've told my friends who are not Jamaicans that it's a beautiful country, okay? Now, here's the thing. I can come to Jamaica tomorrow and live in Cherry Gardens and live a wonderful lifestyle. But the thing is, we cannot ignore the issues of the majority of the population. There
Thank you, ma'am.
are issues. So while some of us are privileged, okay, we cannot ignore the issues. And I think, I know for sure, I don't think this platform is about putting down Jamaica. This platform is about bringing up the real issues. Okay, we love Jamaica. And this is the purpose of this platform because we
Lisa, I
love
agree
our
with you. Thank you
country.
for the comment.
Many of us cannot. The real issue, another issue in Jamaica is crime, right? Why would we want to come to Jamaica and deal with crime with all the burglar bar and come on, man. So we're talking about the issues. There are countries like Mexico, Colombia, who have done a great job with crime. They have a large expat community. It's important for them to have an expat community to bring in dollars to improve their economy, right? So the thing is, Jamaica is so close to the United States. What are we doing? It is so close to the United States. It should be a haven for expats, for retirees to come to Jamaica. So we have to discuss the real issues. How do we become a better Jamaica?
Lisa, let me tell you something. I
Mhm.
agree with everything
Mhm.
that you have said. Everything that you have said. But what I want you to focus on for 1 minute,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
agree that the question of crime is something that is crippling this country. I agree with you. Pointed out
Mhm.
by one of the hosts here that we have difficulty in the educational system. I agree with all of that. I am
Mhm.
simply saying that sometimes we are very hard on ourselves because we don't appreciate where we are coming from as a colonial society in 1962-63 and to recognize the steps that we have made. We were left in 1962-63 as a crime scene. We had no social infrastructure. The infrastructure and the economy, the society was geared on an extraction basis to suit the colonial masters. In 1963, mortality rate, literacy rate was almost 90% in 1963. We have serious problems, but we have made some remarkable strides. And all I'm saying,
Tom, we
please.
have
Let us
made
deal.
strides, but
I agree with you now. And when
Jamaica
I'm
should
talking,
be
and I
far,
spoke about the
Jamaica should
question
be
of.
far better than what Jamaica is today, right? You're okay. You're
Excuse me.
you're
I'm not
talking
disagreeing
about
with
this
you. I'm not
economy and
disagreeing with you. We
GDP.
had it from 1972 to 1980. We had negative growth. The economy was destroyed.
Why?
No, man.
All
I'm running it
right,
by
all
you.
right, all right,
Coming into the 90s and going up
Of
into the
lately,
2000s based on a number of
everybody
issues.
is
We had
bragging
economic
about this
stagnation.
GDP. Okay,
There
GDP.
seems
There
to
are
be
two
some
flaws
change
to
now.
Hold
GDP.
on, Tom,
Two
hold on, let you
flaws.
finish.
Change
Let you
and we
finish.
lose.
Tom.
Back in those
There
days,
are
Ratty,
two
we have
flaws
played,
to
we have trained,
GDP
we
in
have,
any
we
country
have so much
where
things, but we lose.
GDP
Everything
is.
Hold on alone, Tom. Finish,
no,
Lisa.
our dollar, the value gone to
Yeah,
nearly 160 for
Tom,
one.
Can I say
we ain't
something?
talking
No,
in the
not yet,
background.
Tom. Not yet, Tom. Let
This
Lisa
is a
finish.
good time for me to
All
skirt
right.
out of here
No.
and continue this discussion next week. And when we go on, they can cuss me behind my back.
No, we're not do that. We're not do that.
No,
No. Go, Lisa, finish your point, Lisa.
All right.
Hold on alone, Tom. Hold on alone, Tom. Hold on. Lisa, finish your point, please.
Okay, the two flaws to GDP are GDP represents economic output, which is consumption, right? And the other flaw is that it does not address the income inequality in a society, right? So we can brag about GDP. Okay, let me ask you this. Over 20%, a little over 20% of GDP is tourism. How much of that is owned by Jamaicans? Another question. Over 50% of GDP is a service sector. How much of that is owned by Jamaicans? These are the critical questions that we need to answer. So we can gloss over this beautiful number.
I say not
so
enough because
all I'm saying is
the native Jamaican financial structure was destroyed in the 1990s and the early 2000s. Lisa, we will continue this. Thank you very much. God bless Rattigan. Lovely to talk to you people. And I'm prepared to come at quarrel.
Me not get to talk to you about the Integrity Commission and the Act of 2017.
Talk about the boom in the
No, you wait though.
Yeah.
Mr. Lonesome have a town hall every Sunday night, which is an extended program, and you get a chance to actually talk to real Jamaicans. When I say real Jamaicans, I mean Jamaicans living in Jamaica and Jamaicans living abroad.
Anytime you're ready.
All right.
Anytime you're ready. Sunday night, tomorrow night, 8 o'clock,
Later.
Tomorrow night, 8.
That's a filibuster in there, Tom.
Yes, man. Tomorrow night, 8. All right.
All right. Yeah, we can call him and set that up for tomorrow. See, the Tom is a wonderful guy to chat to. He has his own opinions. We respect people's opinion. We respect them opinion. But but the only thing is that
I will not say nothing else.
Yeah.
Because this is always stay. We not talk behind people, but we want to talk front of them.
Right.
So tomorrow night 8, we don't have nothing else to say. I'm going to put the on pause till tomorrow night 8. And I make him come on tomorrow night 8 in the town hall.
Yeah.
So much people are listening to us all over the diaspora and in Jamaica too. and him come make the same speech.
The
Tomorrow night.
man. The thing, and I said this before Tom's face, and I'll say it behind his back, is that Tom has a tendency to interrupt you when you're talking, right?
We don't mind.
Yeah, he has a tendency to interrupt. And although you want to make him talk,
Yes.
Tom is very loquacious. He's very fluent, and so Tom will go on and talk and talk and talk and say the same thing in 4 or 5, 6 different ways, and then
Yeah.
kill the time, and you can't get a question in. And Tom knows what he's doing. It's by design. But tomorrow night, we'll have him tomorrow night. Hold on, make it a call from Jamaica.
It's
Hold
the
on.
filibuster that they
Yeah.
use
Hello, caller. Go ahead.
in the Senate.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Blessings to the panel.
Yes. Hold on a
You know,
second.
what I've been noticing.
I don't get all the points.
Go ahead, caller.
Okay. What I've been noticing is that from 1944 until now, there has been a brain drain taking place, and it's increasing. And when I say brain drain, it is a shame to see people who are so intellectually skilled prostitute that intelligence in support of partisan politics. And when I listen in, and it's not just one side, I literally see people choose, no matter how stupid they look, to defend a party line, even although Jamaica itself and its present condition can testify to the fact that there is no better herring, no better barrel. Mean both PNP and JLP was here all along, and the problem has exacerbated. Each one of them come on and blame the other one. Jamaica is prosperous except when JLP was in. Jamaica is prosperous except PNP was in. We need to get some sober people to discuss this. That's all I have to say.
All right, hold on. All right, let me see.
So
There's
that
another
means
caller.
you hold them accountable. One government
Caller.
at a time and you hold them accountable. Them can't go around that. And you can't use no figures and no, people come with figures all the time and just come tell us this and you have to do this. No, remember say we not program, we not do the computer program thing there, You understand, Ratty?
Yeah.
So we talk as is. When you see the thing as is, you don't say, our man come tell me or force me and say, big up, you have to big up this because big up your country. No, when things wrong, it's wrong, people hungry.
Rattigan.
The system
Yeah.
break
Hold on a
down.
second, Owen. There's another caller. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, so thank you for taking the call. So Mr. Tavares Pinson was basically running out the clock.
Okay.
The funny thing is he said that your show and other shows like your show don't have anything good to say to Jamaica, but you must remember that when he was in opposition, Andrew Holness or a bunch of his cronies, they were talking about all the PNP did, and I'm not a PNP, I was working in Denham Town. All the PNP did was pass INF test. All the PNP did was
Can't
like
hear
I
him
said,
good.
pass.
You can't hear him, go?
Can you hear me?
You said he can't hear you. Well, go ahead. Keep talking.
All right. He was saying that your shows don't talk nothing good about Jamaica. But when they were in opposition, he was saying that all the other party did was pass IMF test. All they do is they refuse to fire certain ministers, and he has been in office and he hasn't fired anyone. They talk about the crime situation, and they're not really doing much about the crime situation except SOEs. There are a couple other things here before I hang up here. When you really look at the situation with the economy, the trade deficit has widened. It's less production, obviously, and that's why the trade deficit has widened. And that's what the lady was saying. We've gone into a service economy, right? The dollar's depreciated. So
I'll repeat what he said.
Anything per se. It's not helping the country. And Tavares must remember that when he was in opposition, they were tearing down the country. But it's not okay now for someone to just make a simple criticism about the bad job that they have been doing. Thank you, Mr.
All right. Thanks. What the caller he took objection to what Tom was saying, because he's talking about the widening trade deficit, no manufacturing, and that
That is it.
Yeah, and he was saying that when they're bragging about the numbers, but the numbers aren't really true numbers.
It's not true numbers. It's a paper economy right now, brother. If we did have plane, we'd have train. We have so much things back in the days, and we lose all of these things. Where money, the value It's a paper economy. We don't own nothing. And you have a government who on board and say,
Hello?
Jamaica said this.
Well,
That make it right?
No, hold on a
It's
second.
this.
Yes, caller, go ahead.
I have to say this about Jamaican violence. The violence in Jamaica is essentially emblematic of the sort of politics that exists there. It's an emblem. It's actually emblematic rather than symptomatic. In other words, hello? Right. The violence is an emblem. In other words, the violence established what the system there is, and the crime. It actually established the way the structure is, rather than, in other words, if you look at when you explore the violence or you examine the violence is actually a reflection of how the system is set up. Not, in other words, if the leadership take responsibility for the country and its direction and provide for the elements that generate the violence, the problem will be solved. It's not that Jamaicans are necessarily bent on criminality. It's because of how much the speaker before, the guest before spoke so eloquently about what Jamaica, the progress we've made, et cetera, but he failed to touch on the fact that the problem Jamaica has with respect to the violence, etc., stems from how much the elite class has abdicated their responsibility over the decades. He talked about what happened in 63 and the numbers of illiteracy, et cetera. And he's not realizing that the same people who took over leadership from the so-called colonial master continued a similar system of ingratiating themselves, making themselves super successful, rich, and live the life, while the rest of the country, 95%, the same 90% of illiterate people, were left in the lurch. So,
Thank you, sir.
you know, I listened to that conversation, and the minute he had the opportunity to go on the defensive, because of the simple statement of you saying that he was stammering, he took that and he ran with that, and he wouldn't allow anyone to speak after that because he had a little opening. And this is why it's important to be careful with characters like that, because if they get a simple chance to continue to hide behind whatever, they will. I don't want to be on long, except to say, as I said, the violence is emblematic of a structure, a system of governance, and the nature of all the societies has been mismanaged. So it's actually like a label you put on something. It's not that it is identifying what the system, what has happened, versus how it is, so to speak. I'm not sure if I'm making
No, you are.
my point. You understand what I'm saying?
Thank you so much. Thanks for the call.
Make us say
All right.
something, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Where as me say, we will have, hold back time tomorrow. Before we make him some other speech, make him come and defend. We don't want to talk behind him back. But on a serious note, we are not robots. We don't program here. Remember, we are in the diaspora, and we contribute more than what tourism I put down there. If I never our money, PSOJ mash up that over $3 billion per year right now. When them have the same COVID when them talk about the pandemic. Remember all of the hotel and everything locked down. And the Bank of Jamaica come and say, thank God for you people in the diaspora. For him come and say, well, on a bond we up in because we not do a good job. We don't have a paper market and a balance way. So we are balance them, we must not complain and tell lie and say big up when people are ball, but every day you have to send money. Every day. Infrastructure not fixed. You can't go do something for tourism this and say, yeah, do this and that. And by the way, government over $200 billion gone every year because of corruption. You understand? And then go for about it. No must talk about it. We know that. We can't be programmed around here. Remember the man in the wilderness, this are the renegade when afraid in a ratty.
See there.
You understand?
See himself.
Yeah, we keep it clean around here, man.
Hold on, we have another caller. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, man.
Hello?
Yes. Caller, go ahead. Hello.
None for Crystal Palace and seat possession 64% in the favor. Just 1 point in this one. After the match.
All right. Yeah. Get a hold of some things in the chat room and then some phone calls. It's just interesting how people view things. But again, this is a forum for that. I mean, we can disagree, and that's fine, because if they have a saying that if 2 people are running a business and they both agree, then you don't need one of them. So in order for grow the business, you need opposing views, right? So this is exactly what this is. Everybody won't share the same viewpoint, but at least everybody will have access to share their viewpoint. No, we may not agree with them, and I'm fine with that. Tom made his points. I mean, he and I, there's some things that I can see myself agreeing with him, but there are lots of things that he and I would disagree. But we're fine. Or Herb, quite a few people saying they would love to hear from you. Say something, please.
Yeah, look, I let him go on because I know what it is when you filibuster and you don't want nobody else speaking, because he feels the heat. The only other question I had for him is which track shoes him have on, Adidas or Puma, because he kept running away 2 weeks in a row now. But the bottom line is this, right? We are here to examine what ails Jamaica, right? We give 2 ministers now the opportunity to speak to what ails and the fixes and what is good for Jamaica. 2 ministers, and we give Tom, the leader in the Senate, the same opportunity, right? He can speak, he can respond to us, but every question that he was asked by myself that had to do with the law, and especially the decisions being made by this government, he spoke to a military investigation, which nobody has seen the results of. How do you allow the military to investigate itself? This is why I was saying you need to expand that investigation and bring in outsiders from a different Caribbean island, the chief of those defense staff or the executive officers in charge of those defense staff. Bring them in and have them from a military perspective, which obviously, Tom, the DPP and nobody else has that military perspective. We're dealing with orders and we're dealing with the order of battle. What happens during a combat area? And they treated Jamaica in 2010 May like a combat area. So the order of battle tells you there's intelligence and there's the operation. There's a field commander, Rocky Mead, and there are these people under Rocky Mead's command who misbehaved themselves, who went up to a house in great numbers, over 100, the report says, and the pictures that they show, you shut up the house. That means you suppress any fire that's coming from that house. And then you sent in a trio to finish the job. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to recognize the order of battle, the way things went down that particular day. The question is, who sent them and why? And it came out of his mouth. He said Bunting, and then he backed up and he said Golden, right? So he called some of the right names. And so why would you have a combined effort between the PNP and the JLP to go in and take this man out? The answer has to be in the documentation that they took from his house? What did they find? We can't say, oh, there was no reason I'm impugning a dead man's integrity. No, I'm speaking truth to power. They staked this house out. The intelligence that they had told them it was time to come up there because obviously they heard something they didn't like. And it was time to take the man out. Now, Jamaica have to live with that. I don't have to live with it. Right? I'm here in the United States. I have freedom of speech. And I can say what I need to say. So people in the diaspora understand clearly there's a problem with the procedure that went down. There's a problem when you have even a U.S. P-3 spy plane listening overhead and can pick out any call they want and help target a specific house, right? There's a problem when you send 100 soldiers or more up to upper class area of St. Andrew and shoot up a household with 3 people in there. And you have to know 3 people in there because you have the place staked out. It's ridiculous to come and argue that the DPP acted on a investigation done by the military and by the police. They're covering their own asses, right? That's simple and straightforward. You need to publish that military and that police report. You need to give transparency to the people of Jamaica. Say what happened. Say why you're going to sacrifice 3 low-ranking people and cover the asses of a major general, a brigadier, and a full bird colonel. It's that simple.
Yes, sir. I'm here. You make me just finish my little speech. As I say, I could carry man tomorrow when I want to. Like I'm run off now, go on carry man tomorrow. Yeah, in the town hall and make him come repeat everything. Because we're there, you know, remember we're the man of the wilderness. Well, listen, don't you see the finance minister come and come explain. And we learn to explain, but him never move like this. The health minister come and him do the same thing. I will make him explain or ask him a question, and you don't hear him accuse us of something like this. The opposition leader came on and the same thing. You understand? The spokesperson for finance come on, the same thing. We can't talk to them. But Tom does feel like him want to come and do what he want to. Okay, we are here for it. I always say, we stand up for the poor and needy and we burn out the rich and greedy. Jamaica going the back way, wrong way. And that's final. Them can't put nothing away then, man. We in the diaspora all up Jamaica. Okay? So we just keep it real and honest. You go into the community them right now, you have people them can't find food, brother. Staple mean can be flour and rice. And $9,000 per week minimum wage. But yet still, the health minister said yesterday, said film pay can't send them kids go to school. But yes, still whenever everybody said them, if your pay can't send your kids go to school, and look about you, what about the people them who work 9,000 Jamaican dollars a week? You see me, Sabati? Yes. So that's how we keep it real, man. So you know, say tomorrow night, you know, say yes, man. Make him come on, man. We're good, man. Yeah? All right.
Stigmatization again,
Yes.
Teresa.
Stigma is why most people do not seek mental health treatment. And the sad thing is that oftentimes, if we seek help early, mental illness is manageable and we can go on to live productive lives. I think especially, and one of the things is that in Jamaica in particular, we make good fun of a lot of things. And one of the things that people are afraid of is to be called you're mad, you're crazy. And with that often comes disrespect. They're not respected if they're viewed as not having all of their mental faculties. And people are afraid of that. So one of the things I think that we ought to do to reduce stigma is to really be intentional about the programs that we put in place. And some of the things that have been done that I think would be effective is to have a destigmatization day where the government and the people have a big party and do whatever it is. Some of the things we have done is to release balloons into the atmosphere, which is a symbolic way to release stigma. Education, if you coexist mental health with physical health, if you begin to teach children at an early age in school, just like you teach them about their body, teach them about their mental health, and that it's okay if everything is not neatly aligned. It's okay, there's help. But if they begin to feel badly about, I'm depressed, I can't sleep, I'm hearing voices, all of those things, then it's going to seem to them unusual and they will not seek help. They'll be ashamed and not tell anybody about what they're feeling.
Herb, go ahead. Are you finished with that? With the
Yeah.
destigmatization? Herb, you have a question for Teresa?
Yeah, stigmatization, we're talking about two different attitudes here. There's a prejudice attitude that people have against mental health and express themselves to people in negative fashions. And then there is a personal, internalized, stigma that people just naturally feel if they are suffering, and they don't want to approach a mental health professional or anyone. In the old days, it used to be my security clearance. I had to protect it at all costs. Here in the U.S., we have these top secret security clearances, and if they found out you're having mental issues, that was grounds for them to suspend your clearance until you got treatment. Treatment could take a year or longer, then you end up losing your job. So there are different reasons that people either perceive it or they express it. Could you speak to those two different reasons?
Right, you're absolutely correct. And that still exists. There are certain jobs for which you're not eligible if you do indeed have a mental health problem, a diagnosable mental health problem. As a matter of fact, because some mental health problems behaviorally express themselves sometimes in erratic behaviors and an inability to make certain kinds of decisions. For your security clearance, that would not necessarily, you would not necessarily be a prime candidate for a clearance if you are exhibiting those kinds of symptoms. It doesn't mean, however, that you can never get to a place, a space where you can hold certain positions of responsibility. However, you have to demonstrate over an extended period of time with medication and ongoing therapy that most of the problems that would place you at risk or place the people with whom you have to interact at risk have been resolved. And that would, a lot of times people don't want to take medication. I apologize. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yes, it places you at risk. So it's not just the jobs that places you at risk or make you ineligible. Oftentimes, you have no control over what happens to you. When I say you have no control, you don't know what your behavior is going to be. If you're unstable, you don't know what your next move might be, and it might indeed place people at risk. This doesn't happen in every case, and most people don't have one of the major mental disabilities, but it is indeed possible and it can happen.
All right, thank you.
Let me ask you this question, Teresa. When I was growing up, we used to see people like in my neighborhood, or in other neighborhoods too, walk half naked, and people say, "Yeah, madman, madman." But I went to school in Meadowbrook. I never saw that. So growing up, I just assumed that this mental health issue was was a poor people thing. It was the stresses of life. You know, you can't pay your bills, you can't feed your family and things like that. But the people uptown that they didn't have this. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're partly wrong, but I think what we saw as children is what is described now as like hebephrenic schizophrenia. Because when you go out and you disrobe and you sleep on the street, very often it's a lack of mental health care. But most people who have a mental illness they don't do that. They don't necessarily go naked on the street. Everybody is not paranoid schizophrenic. You have people who are very depressed. You have people who are bipolar. You have extremes in behavior, but it doesn't necessarily mean. And to your point, it's not an illness. It's not a disease for the very wealthy. It's just that sometimes they have the resources to manage it better. People in the poorer communities, because of stigma as well, and because of lack of appropriate resources, they don't get the treatment, and so it's managed and viewed differently in those communities.
Well, now that you mentioned resources, let me ask you this. If and I think you may have, I don't know extensive your experiences with Jamaica, but based on what you know, what you've heard, what's been communicated to you, uh, can you give us a sense as to whether or not Jamaica is, first of all, a country that actually, I mean, every country needs somebody like you to help them go through, you know, depression and all of that. But do you think we're at a stage now where we really, really need it? And do you think also that we have the resources to deal with the numbers?
Unfortunately, no. I don't think the resources are available to really effectively manage all the people who need mental health care. Jamaica has done a tremendous job, however, from say 10, 15 years ago. They have put in place many services. As a matter of fact, there is a public discussion. If you go along certain highways, you will see billboards that says mental health is everybody's problem. Some years ago, that was not the case. They also have a lot of services in schools. They have a foster care program where kids who are not able to live in their homes are able to move into a better living situation as a result of abuse, socioeconomic conditions, etc. So yes, we have made progress, we have made strides, but not nearly to the extent that it's needed. They have put in place a lot of evidence-based practices. And then I must say this, I do believe that if you want to really get a handle on the management and treatment of mental illness, we have to start with the children. We have to start by putting programs in school where we identify where kids are having problems. Because if we don't, they're going to grow up to be adults with major problems and different kinds of behavioral issues, oftentimes ending up in the court system.
But go ahead, Harold.
Yeah, I'm referring to kids in school. I think is a big elephant in the room because you have some mothers out there. The fathers express where they want to see their kids end up in life, but the mothers are the champions, almost like a jockey who rides the kid every day in school. And if they find that the kid has some, they're in the ball and they can learn, but they ride these kids so hard that mentally the kids start coming apart. And this is from my personal experiences with members within my family, right? My extended family, I should say, where the kid ends up being on Prozac. Now, you would think that, all right, 2 years, a year until graduation, the kid is either first in class every time or they're being edged out by another bright student and they have to come back and prove that they're better than that student. But then it continues to University of the West Indies. And mom doesn't back away, even though the university wants her to back away. She even goes to the university to argue a position for the kid. And the university is saying, look, let the kid take the bus to school, let the kid do this, let the kid do that on their own, let them learn. But it continues. And then what we find today, that child is trapped, that kid is still on Prozac. That and you go from one psychiatrist to another seeking a different opinion. Are the psychiatrists just keeping kids on Prozac in the island, or is this a proper way to treat, I guess, depression that comes from the amount of stress that they were placed under while they were in high school?
So stress, that's not necessarily a Jamaican condition. You have those kind of helicopter parents all over the world. However, you can't just blame the parent, the mother. I think you have to look at, so let me suggest this. If you look at the history of the mother's experience and why she's pushing the child so hard, I'm sure you'll find a rationale of why she's doing that. And I dare say that if a child is depressed, it's not only the external factors that cause the depression. It may very well be that the child was predisposed to depression anyway. And then what the mother is doing serves as an external trigger for the child and exacerbates the condition. So I think it would be difficult for me to say, yes, it's the mother riding the child that's causing the depression. I would venture to say that it's a multiplicity of issues that has resulted in the child's depression. So it's not just one factor. You have another child who you have in the Chinese culture, the Japanese culture, the parents will ride them, as you say, for their own good, for their own success, and they don't end up depressed. And you have children who are self-motivated and will ride themselves for their own success. So I don't think I would say, and I don't think that's the only factor that the parents riding them results in the depression. It could very well be that there is a lack of communication in terms of what the child needs and what the parents need. It could be that the child is not functioning at the level that the parents think, and they're spending way too much time on schoolwork, and there's not a school and social life balance. And that also causes dysregulation within the child.
Yeah, well, that is a part of the problem. Not just for the case. I'm aware of several cases where there is virtually no social life, and the child ends up being very deficient, unable to deal with the opposite sex, unable to deal with simple things that they should know. Even being able to drive, everything was done for them. Everything was provided for them. Is this
I do believe that it's a lot more complex than just that. What you have identified as what you think is the core of the problem, I would want to take a deeper dive to really identify the core, because those things are not necessarily things that would cause a child to be deficient in the areas that you have identified.
Hold on one second. We have a call on the line. Caller, go ahead, please.
Yes, I just want to comment on your mental health. And
my mental health?
No, no, the mental health discussion.
Okay.
First of all, I want to say single parenting is a difficult situation, and I know that firsthand. And also what Mr. Nelson mentioned about prejudice. Just thinking that prejudice within our society, within Jamaica, as a matter of society, is morale in one aspect. And also the morals that's acceptable. And as you mentioned, you would see someone on the street walking and, they torn up and whatever, and we laugh at them and stuff like that. But you have to understand, it is just recently that Jamaicans are understanding what mental health really is. And they lack the understanding. And even if they see someone, they don't know how to seek help because they have no education as to how to go about it or the true meaning of mental health. You know, it's all of this I think is stemming from the colonial background. So I just wanted to comment on that.
All right. Thank you. Any comments?
Yes, I think she's absolutely correct. I think we have not yet talked about depressed communities, lack of education, intergenerational trauma, systemic poverty. All she said, people weren't educated, so they don't even know what they're experiencing. They don't even know that they are indeed the victim of intergenerational trauma. So what you find is when you live in marginalized communities, you have marginalized schools, you have marginalized social programs. And so you have people who have not been heard. And when we look at, I'm sorry, not just the mental health system, all of the social systems that are in place, you will find that even though Jamaica is out of many one people, there's a lack of cultural sensitivity in how to address many of those problems. You will find that someone in a particular community, let's say a garrison community, will express themselves in a certain way, whereas somebody else in, I think Jamaicans like to talk about uptown. I don't know where the geographic lines are, but someone from uptown would necessarily express themselves differently and would get a different result. So if we're talking about cultural competence, or I think what they're now calling diversity, inclusion, and equity, if we apply those, we will see that we are not really treating the people who are most in need of services. A part of inclusion means, let me make a decision about my life, but I have to know what the services are that are available to me. Diversity means that everybody's voice needs to be heard, not just the people from uptown or midtown, but the people from downtown, the people who can't speak for themselves. And services ought to be provided in a more equitable fashion. Everybody ought to be able to avail themselves of those services. I shouldn't have to leave my community in rural Jamaica to go to Kingston or another city to get services. And I do know that there are strides being made to put health services in different communities. So it's a little better than it was, but it certainly isn't as good as it ought to be to manage, what that lady was talking about.
All right, we have a caller. Caller, go ahead, please.
Doctor, I wanted to ask you, just now you were responding to some remarks about the mothers who, what was the word? Helicopter parenting and so on. The very first thing you did in response was you moved to exonerate the mother. That was your first order of response. You were saying if you check back in their background, you'll find so and so. So it's the first move to exonerate the parent, the mother. I was hoping that you might make some statements with respect to how mothers and fathers maybe can realign themselves to the need of a child that's in crisis, as opposed to just excuse that the only exoneration you offered was just for the mothers. So it's almost like mothers who are listening have had no statements from you about how they may respond. There was a part of what I heard where the university tries to intervene, et cetera, but the mothers come and they try to disrupt that. So I would have liked to hear something about how mothers, for that matter, or fathers may adapt or respond to a child in crisis, not to be just exonerated and that's it. Thank you for the call.
Thanks, caller. All right. Teresa, want to comment on that?
I had difficulty hearing that.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah,
Dr.
he was saying, go ahead, Herb.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, he was saying that it seemed as if you were quick to exonerate the mom, but that that he was hoping that you would address the issue from mother, father, not necessarily exonerate just the mother, because the two people are sometimes involved in this. Essentially, that's what he's saying.
And he's right, but I was responding to Dr. Nelson, and he said the mother. So actually, he's correct. Both parents, whether it's the mother, the father, whoever the custodial parent is, would be addressed similarly. But because Dr. Nelson, his question had to do primarily with the mother.
Okay.
So that's why I responded from that perspective.
Okay.
But he's right.
Let me just add this, Will, because as we know, in Jamaica, the mother has been the main or major provider to these young people. The father might be out or missing someplace, not at home. So there are a lot of single mothers, single parent households, where mothers have to provide. But what I'm referring to in a lot in such a case that I mentioned, you have both parents there, but the father is devoted to work, and mom is the one that is the stroking and cajoling and doing the pushing, right? So I don't think it's going to come out even between mom and father, because some fathers don't interfere with the management in the household. They are concerned with bringing home the bacon, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, is it that fathers now have to adjust to measure what's happening in the household and directly impact that situation with the mothers, and then that's going to cause some strife, some amount of strife.
Well, before you respond, Teresa, let me have a couple of questions. Two questioners with several questions. One out of Philadelphia and one out of Jamaica. I'm gonna get to the Jamaica one because that one is it covers a bigger area than this one. So let me just go through this quickly. It says mental problems begin with lack of awareness, prompting fear, and in an effort to evade the trauma, the mind goes into a kind of protection mode. The manifestation of that we call the madness, quote unquote. The big picture is the social systems under which we live and have lived historically, and has been the catalyst for poor mental health. Mental health is primary health because poor mental health leads to poor physical health. The health system, as is incapable of properly addressing mental health, so they prescribe drugs and therapies which do not deal with causation. We are yet to address the biggest causation, which is post-traumatic slave syndrome. You want to comment on that?
Yes. So when we talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, I don't think all mental health is based in post-traumatic stress. Yes, some of this started back in slavery in terms of how Black people were treated, and especially in Jamaica, as we have the society where certain people
say it
valued more than others.
Say it, and I see you looking around.
Where you have
I think she might be looking behind to see if,
I know who she's looking for.
Senator is there. But I want you to expand that, because you have a situation in the underserved communities where there's gunfire present quite a bit. And you have situations where even the security forces themselves are subject to PTSD, and we find it was more common in several visits when we went to Jamaica, where the security forces are suffering and they had no recourse available to them. They were afraid of their jobs. So you have a very dangerous situation when they don't get the health care that they desire, and they're suffering from PTSD. So could you expand your answer? Thanks.
Certainly. So a corollary of those kind of communities, disadvantaged communities, is a depressed and blighted environment. You have people who become apathetic. You have people who have not been heard for years and years and years. And so they don't know how to regulate their behavior. So the only way they are heard or respected is if they behave in a manner that they use guns, they use language, they beat other people up, they fight, all kinds of things. And that is just their way of saying, listen to me, I'm a human being. That did not happen when they were coming along. And so you find the same people who grew up in deprived communities. They never had the nurturing, whether it's from Jamaica is primarily a matriarchal society. They never had the nurturing that they needed because the mother was out there trying to survive, trying to struggle to make ends meet, and some didn't even bother. A lot of children were just left to survive on their own. So they don't know standards were set for them. So we turn around and we blame them because they end up in a criminal justice system. So I think the question should be not what's wrong with those people, what's wrong with you, what's wrong with those people in those communities is what the question then should be, what happened to you? And if we frame our response in terms of what happened to you, and we address some of what happened to you and trying to prevent it from happening again to another generation, I think we would go a long way. Now, like I said, it has to be a multi-systemic approach because we can't regulate adult man and woman behavior. We can't regulate how a man treats his family. We can't regulate when a woman has 7 children for 7 different men. And then we are not blaming her because if you even look at that situation, there's a reason why that happened. So she's probably looking for financial support, emotional support, whatever it is that she's looking for. And then the children get left out of that equation. So I think to just say that it comes from slavery, yes, that was the genesis of it. But I think we have had opportunities since then to change behaviors, and we have not done so. We have perpetuated a lot of that behavior. If you look at even a simple thing as bleaching is saying to people, I don't like what I look like. That just didn't come from somebody who is now 24, 25, and they don't like what they look like. That has been ingrained in them from a very early age, that particular color of your skin, we don't like it. It's not going to get you anywhere. And it's not just the color of your skin, it's the way you look. It's systemic poverty. It's grief. It's post-traumatic stress disorder from living in certain communities. It's poverty. All of those things impact your mental health. So I don't think we can identify one causative factor. We have to look at a whole gamut, and it will take an entire system change to address some of these challenges and to effectively, so you can get more mental health programs. But it's like taking a bath and putting on dirty clothes after you've taken a bath. Because you can get therapy, but if you go back into your same depressed communities with gun violence and all of the things that are happening in those communities, you're ending up back right where you are.
Let me just go to a very dear friend of mine out of Jamaica. She said that it's prohibitively expensive to get treatment in Jamaica, and especially if you're not referred to the specialist by your medical doctor, the GP. And also, some people may not want to admit or may not want to tell their GP that they're hearing voices or some of the other symptoms that you described. And then she went on to say that she's aware of a situation during COVID, because people were stressed out during COVID, where a relative of hers was in charge of I guess an organization, and he allowed his staff a mental health day once per month, and it worked. People coped with that, and she admitted that during COVID, she couldn't finish her lectures because she found herself just crying in the classroom.
Okay, so COVID COVID alone, under normal everyday circumstances in our world, in our communities, maybe 1 out of 5 persons suffer from a mental illness or some sort of mental dysregulation. During COVID, it was like 1 to 4 and 1 to 3. You have people who were borderline, and COVID just brought out some major dysfunctions. You had a higher increase in suicide thoughts. There was an increase in substance use, an increase in alcohol use. And so all of those things increased during COVID. Hopefully, people now realize that they are vulnerable and will get the services. Yes, it's expensive, and it's, as in everything else with Jamaica, you probably have to know somebody. It doesn't mean, however, that you cannot get services. I have seen people, a man approached me on the street, and a relative of his said, "Why you not left the woman alone with your mad self? Go about your business." And that's typically how people are viewed. Now, in my world, people need advocacy. I don't think there is enough advocacy in Jamaica, and I hope people don't come for me for having said that. But I think advocates, even though in my work world, advocates kept me on my feet. They really did. You become a better person, you get better services with advocacy. And so those people who are not able to talk that language, talk, to look a certain way. I heard there was a TikTok video, I believe it was TikTok, where this lady, she was very melodic in the way she was saying, "We want this, we want that." And the way, just her physical expression of herself was comedic, and it became a meme. So what she was saying was lost. And what she was really saying is that there was sewage running in her yard. Her children were running around. There's dirty water. They did not have good drinking water, but that was lost. And so I think with advocacy, if we could get sufficient advocates in the community to advocate for those people who cannot advocate for themselves or who have become apathetic because they have not been listened to, I think that will go a far way into getting people the services that they need.
I wanted to follow up, actually, if you could comment more specifically about the KPH staff, the area that KPH exists in. A lot of the emergency room doctors were complaining that they were suffering mental issues. The amount of gunshot wounds and deaths that they have to witness, calls they have to make that a person is dead. It affects them there very much. But worse yet is the police officers that they talk to, who bring folks in, who are trying to do their very best to do the best job they can. And they themselves are suffering in silence. Can you specifically comment on those two?
So, in all honesty, I can't speak specifically about that for Jamaica, but I do know that in areas where I've had involvement, that you have core mental health staff primarily to support what we call first responders, which would include the emergency room physician for trauma and police officers. Those are your first responders, and they're the ones who see trauma every day. They're the ones who, when they go home,
hold on 1 second, please.
Oftentimes, because of the PTSD, they begin to become a part of the mental health community because of the traumas that they face on a daily basis. So I think we would be well served to have most police departments now have counselors, have counseling available to police officers. And again, I can't speak specifically to Jamaica, but in communities in which I have had some responsibility, we certainly have specific therapies, specific counseling. They are removed if there is a particular horrific situation. They are removed and are encouraged to talk about it.
All right. We have a caller online here, Teresa. Caller, go ahead, please.
Yeah, good night.
Good night, sir.
Yeah, I'm a Jamaican living in England.
Yes, sir.
And I must say congratulations for everything that you lot been doing.
Thank you,
But
sir.
there's only one question I have to ask, yeah?
Yes, sir.
I would like to know if all of this hard work, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if all of this hard work that you lot putting in, please, I'm asking you, let's see some result out of it. It's full time now. Someone pay the price. I'm not talking about no GLP or no PMP. I'm talking about Jamaica. Someone need to pay the price for bringing the country in this dispute. We Jamaicans, we are tired of living in abroad. We want to come home. And with the condition that is down there, it is a big disgrace, utmost embarrassment to many Jamaicans all over the world. Please, I'm asking you, you know how I feel now hearing you people? It's like when I did see a Bible story when I think it was Moses come to Israel or one of those places. I'm not a Christian to know, but it's something like that. I know people who is listening will know. Something like that. Come to deliver the people from Pharaoh. That's how I feel about you guys. Please, I'm asking you, let's see some result. And who to go to jail, go to jail. Who to lock up, lock up. Who to embarrass, embarrass. Just do something for me, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, and God go with you, lot.
Thank you, caller. One of the things, a quick response is that people are now listening because, as I said before, the types of programs you're seeing and listening to right now, they didn't exist 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so politicians, things that they did went undetected. Now, in today's digital age, and with social media and the ease and the efficiency of communication, it's difficult for them to do that. And so the first thing that we want to do is we want people to listen. That's the first thing. And I'm happy that you're listening from England, and I hope you encourage your neighbors and your friends, even your enemies, make up with them and have them listen to the program, because first thing is to listen. The second thing is to understand. And then once they listen and they understand, and then they start communicating with others, then we start getting the movement going. And I understand what you're saying, somebody has to pay a price. We're not talking about violence. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about an orderly a demonstration. And when I say demonstration, I don't necessarily mean people just walking up and down the street. But this is a demonstration. This program is a demonstration because it's demonstrating against what we see as injustice and inequity. Also corruption and some other things. So, Carl, I want to thank you, and I want to urge you to continue listening, understanding what we're talking about, share the word in your community, and let's talk soon. Yes, let me go back to Teresa. Teresa, what were you saying now, Herb? Or if you don't, I have a question. I have a question.
Teresa was to respond, and I think you.
Okay. Well, here's another question. Somebody said, can you ask Teresa to address the hereditary trauma, and how is that being addressed or not?
Hereditary trauma?
Yes.
So I am not sure what that means. If you mean intergenerational trauma, is that what
Patrick, Patrick, link me up. What does that mean? Go ahead, Herb.
Okay.
I believe Teresa is on the mark. It's intergenerational. In other words, it's being passed along.
Exactly.
You mean like a father who's abused his children? Is that?
So that's on an individual basis. But when you talk about communities, you're talking about systemic poverty. You're talking about systemic racism. And one would ask, so racism doesn't exist in Jamaica. So racism may not exist in Jamaica in the form that it exists in, say, Canada, England, or the United States of America. But there is some form of prejudice in Jamaica.
Classism and colorism, it's referred to as.
Yes, sir. Exactly. And that is the crux of many, 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 many problems. And so when you have the generational trauma of poverty, the generational trauma of disrespect, when you have a parent or a family that cannot afford to eat, that they live on the banks of the gully, you have to be really a magician to move yourself out of those circumstances. And many people don't get out of it. And so that's the kind of generational trauma that you're talking about. Those children are so dysregulated, those people are so dysregulated that they don't know how to respond to any circumstance. They don't know how to pause. They don't know how to reflect. They don't know how to think, because their only response is survival. And if survival means taking up a gun, if survival means stealing, if survival means behaving in any way that's unethical, that's what they're going to do for their basic survival. And that's why I mentioned earlier about pre-sentence investigations. They are important. And they're important because when you look into people's background, it gives a window into why they're behaving the way that they're behaving. And so intergenerational trauma impacts all of our lives. It impacts our socioeconomic status. It impacts our communities. It impacts the fact that there's insufficient health care. It impacts the fact that we have women who know that their daughters are being abused by a family member, the neighbor, the man next door, or what have you. And because of certain factors over which they have no control, they live with it. Mm-hmm. And that causes that child who have suffered that trauma to think that it's, after a while, it becomes normative. Okay. Because there's so much of it in the community that they think, oh, okay, so I'm not the only one it's happened to, and it's not normal. So when they move into other communities, they're ostracized because that behavior is not normal.
Okay, we have a caller on the line. Caller, go ahead, please. We don't have much time.
I know. I just want to comment on about hereditary. Intergenerational is environment. Hereditary has to do with your DNA passed down within the family, like predisposition. Right. I think that's what the person meant.
Oh, okay. Okay. Right. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
So I think at the top of the hour, we did talk about some mental illness are indeed hereditary, but it's not hereditary trauma. It's the hereditary illness. Intergenerational trauma are the societal and environmental factors that impact your emotional well-being.
So, Teresa, let me ask this question. We don't have much time left. We have about 3.5 minutes left. But let me ask you this. What can you do if people don't want to be helped because they feel they're going to be stigmatized? And so they're like, it's one of those things where they say, if you know you're going crazy, then you must be sane. So but they're hearing voices, but they're still operating at a level that you could call them sane. And they're like, well, I don't want any help because if I go and I say these things, then people are going to look at me a certain way. How do you address that?
So I'm going to say something that will surprise you. Hearing voices in and of itself, I mean, there are patients who I know, if they hear their voices, they're pleasant voices, and they can function. When you hear, I know you've seen many people talking to themselves and responding to voices, but there are people who are conscious and will not let you know that they're hearing the voices. You will see the body movement and the language that suggests that they're hearing voices. Now you have people who hear voices the voices tell them to do some dangerous things, cut your hand off, kill somebody, cut your fingers off, use bleach, drink bleach to cleanse your system and so forth. Now those are dangerous and they do indeed need medication. But the average person who has some dysregulation, who is not hearing voices, maybe bipolar without any paranoid ideation, they can actually function in society. They do need help. It's like driving a car, a 6-cylinder car, and you're operating a 4-cylinder. You have people who are very depressed and would function maximally if only they would get help. They would function at a 6, but they're now functioning at a 4. So I think there is no, these are all adults, and you can't force people. The only time you can force people into care, and I don't know if you have it here, we have something we call an FD12, it's emergency petition for hospitalization, where the police can become involved, or a family member can call the police or what have you, or you can go to the hospital and they determine that you're a danger to yourself or to others and they can hospitalize you. But a lot of people won't get to that level. And a lot of people will not seek, because of stigma, will not seek mental health. You have your average person who is dysfunctional in their personal life, dysfunctional in their business life, in their professional life, but they're getting along. And they would be so much better if they received some mental health treatment, but they refuse to do so, and you can't make them. The good thing is if you understand what they're experiencing, then you can tailor your behavior and your response to them with an understanding of what it is that they're experiencing.
All right. Look, we got to stop it there. We're almost at the top of the hour. Teresa, I want to thank you for coming along. I mean, I'm looking at some of the reviews on my phone and in the chat room, and they're very, very positive. I hope you will make this your home, meaning that you can come back anytime. We look forward to seeing you real soon. Thanks again to Mr. Tavares Finson for showing up, and I trust that he'll take Mr. Wayne Lonesome at his word, and he'll show up for his town hall meeting tomorrow. Again, folks, same time next week, same place, www.reggaeglobalradio.com. Thank you for listening.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you now.
All right. Thanks for Herb as well. Sorry. And Lonesome for being here.
Honesty, and you say honesty, honesty, and you say honesty, honesty, and you say honesty, honesty, and you say honesty. Say honesty, honesty, and you say honesty.
I know this is that. So, spiritual.